Lydia Harper pushed open the heavy glass doors of Luxe Gems, the kind of place where the air smelled faintly of expensive perfume and money. At 42, she didn't look like she belonged here. Not in her faded denim jacket, a pair of scuffed sneakers, and a plain canvas tote slung over her shoulder. Her dark hair, streaked with a few strands of gray, was pulled back in a loose ponytail that swayed as she stepped inside. The store gleamed around her, marble floors so polished they reflected the chandeliers overhead, glass cases sparkling with diamonds and emeralds, and staff dressed sharper than most CEOs. It was the kind of luxury that screamed exclusivity, and Lydia, well, she screamed something else entirely. She wasn't here to impress anyone, though. Today was about Mia, her 16-year-old daughter, whose birthday was just a week away. Lydia had been thinking about the perfect gift for months. Something meaningful, something that said, "I see you," to a girl who was growing up faster than she could keep up with. She'd spotted it online, a delicate emerald necklace, simple but striking, listed at $25,000 on the Luxe Gems website. It wasn't cheap, but it wasn't about the price. It was about Mia's green eyes lighting up when she opened the box. Lydia had the cash ready, tucked into an envelope in her tote, and she figured this would be a quick stop. In and out. She couldn't have been more wrong. The moment her sneakers squeaked against the marble, heads turned. A woman in a fur-trimmed coat glanced over her shoulder, her lips pursing like she'd smelled something sour. A man in a tailored suit flicked his eyes up from his phone, then back down, dismissing her in a heartbeat. The staff didn't even try to hide it. One salesgirl, perched behind a counter like a mannequin, raised an eyebrow and whispered something to her coworker. Lydia caught the gist. What's she doing here? But she brushed it off. She spent years tuning out that kind of noise. Money didn't mean you had to flaunt it, and she'd never been one for flash. Not anymore. She made her way to a display near the center of the store, where the necklace sat under soft lighting, its emerald catching the glow just right. Up close, it was even prettier than the pictures. Small, elegant, perfect for Mia. Lydia leaned in, her fingers brushing the edge of the glass, when a voice cut through the hum of the room. "Can I help you?" It wasn't a question so much as a challenge. She turned to see a young woman, Sophie, according to the gold name tag pinned to her crisp blazer. Sophie's eyes raked over Lydia's outfit, lingering on the frayed hem of her jacket, the worn laces of her shoes. Her smile was tight, the kind you'd give a kid who wandered into the wrong store. "Yeah, hi," Lydia said, keeping her tone light. "I'm interested in that emerald necklace, the one right there. Could you tell me more about it?" Sophie's smile didn't budge, but something flickered in her eyes. Doubt, maybe amusement. "That piece," she said, her voice dripping with just enough skepticism to sting. "It's a custom design, $25,000. Are you sure that's what you're looking for?" Lydia nodded, unfazed. "Pretty sure. I'd like to buy it today. Cash, if that works." Sophie blinked, her perfect composure cracking for a split second. Then she straightened up, smoothing her blazer like she was brushing off the surprise. "Cash," she repeated almost to herself. "Right. Let me get the manager." Sophie disappeared behind a velvet curtain, her heels clicking against the marble like a countdown. Lydia stood there, hands in her pockets, feeling the weight of the room shift around her. The whispers were louder now, a soft buzz from the other customers who'd caught wind of her request. A woman in a silk scarf adjusted her sunglasses to get a better look, while a guy with a Rolex tapped his foot, smirking like he was in on some private joke. Lydia kept her eyes on the necklace, tracing the curve of the emerald with her gaze. She wasn't here to prove anything to these people, she just wanted the damn gift. The curtain parted and out stepped Vanessa Klein. At 35, she was all sharp edges, black suit hugging her frame, red stilettos that screamed power, and a sleek blonde bob that didn't dare move out of place. Her pearl earrings glinted as she tilted her head, sizing Lydia up like a hawk spotting a mouse. She didn't walk so much as glide, her presence filling the space between them before she even opened her mouth. "So," Vanessa said, her voice smooth but laced with something cold. "You're interested in the emerald piece?" She stopped a few feet away, arms crossed, one manicured nail tapping against her elbow. Her eyes flicked over Lydia's denim jacket, the sneakers, the tote bag that looked like it'd seen better days. "It's a rare design, not something we pull out for just anyone." Lydia met her gaze, steady as ever. "I get that. I'd like to see it, though. I'm buying it for my daughter's birthday." Vanessa's lips twitched, not quite a smile. "Your daughter's birthday," she echoed, like she was testing the words for a lie. "That's sweet, but you said cash? For $25,000? Her tone sharpened, disbelief cutting through the politeness. "Yeah," Lydia said simply. "I've got it with me. Can we make this quick?" For a second, Vanessa just stared, like she was waiting for Lydia to crack a grin and admit it was a prank. Then she laughed, a short, brittle sound that bounced off the glass cases. "Cash," she said again, louder this time, turning her head just enough to catch Sophie's eye. The salesgirl smirked, and a couple of nearby customers perked up, sensing drama. "You're telling me you walked in here with 25 grand stuffed in that bag?" She gestured at the tote with a flick of her wrist, like it was something she wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. Lydia didn't flinch. "Pretty much. Is that a problem?" Vanessa's laugh faded, replaced by a tight, thin smile. "Oh, it's not a problem for me, but I'm wondering if it's a problem for you. See, this isn't the kind of place where people waltz in off the street with a wad of bills. We cater to a certain clientele." She stepped closer, lowering her voice just enough to make it personal. "People who don't look like they're shopping for knockoffs at a flea market." The jab landed, sharp and deliberate. Lydia felt it in her chest, a familiar sting she'd brushed off 100 times before. She could have fired back, could have told Vanessa she'd worn worse than this to board meetings once upon a time, but she didn't. Not yet. "I'm not here for knockoffs," she said instead, keeping her voice even. "I'm here for that necklace. Can you get it for me, or should I talk to someone else?" Vanessa's smile vanished. She straightened up, all business now, but the contempt still simmered in her eyes. "Look, I don't know what game you're playing, but we don't have time for this. That piece is reserved for serious buyers, people who make appointments, people who—" She paused, gesturing vaguely at Lydia's outfit. "Well, people who fit the part." "I'm serious," Lydia said, her patience starting to fray. "I've got the money. I'm not asking for a discount or a favor. Just the necklace." Vanessa didn't budge. She crossed her arms again, her red nails flashing like warning signs. "You've got the money," she mimicked, her voice dripping with mockery. "Sure you do. And I've got a bridge to sell you in Brooklyn. Why don't you take your little story somewhere else? There's a discount jeweler 2 blocks down. They might have something more your speed." The room was watching now, openly. A woman in pearls clutched her purse tighter, like Lydia might try to snatch it. The Rolex guy chuckled under his breath. Sophie hovered nearby, her smirk growing into a full-on grin. Lydia felt the heat creeping up her neck, but she held her ground. "I don't need a discount jeweler," she said, louder this time. "I need you to do your job." Vanessa's eyes narrowed. "My job," she snapped, "is to protect this store's reputation, and that means not wasting time on people who clearly don't belong here." She turned to a security guard lurking near the entrance, a burly guy in a black suit who'd been pretending not to listen. "James, could you show this lady out? She's disrupting our customers." James hesitated, glancing at Lydia like he wasn't sure she was worth the trouble. But Vanessa's glare didn't leave room for debate. He stepped forward, one hand outstretched. "Ma'am, let's go. No scene, all right?" Lydia looked at him, then back at Vanessa. The manager's face was a mask of triumph, like she'd just won some invisible battle. For a moment, Lydia considered pushing back, pulling out the cash, slapping it on the counter, making them eat their words. But she didn't. Not because she couldn't, but because she knew something Vanessa didn't. This wasn't over. "Fine," she said quietly, adjusting her tote on her shoulder. "I'll go." She turned toward the doors, her sneakers squeaking again as she walked away. The whispers followed her, a chorus of judgment and amusement. Vanessa's voice rang out one last time, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Next time, try somewhere that sells plastic beads. This is Luxe Gems, sweetheart." Lydia didn't look back. She pushed through the doors, stepping into the cool afternoon air, and pulled her phone from her pocket. Her thumb hovered over the screen for a second before she tapped a name. Ethan. The call connected after one ring. "Hey," she said, her voice steady despite the burn in her chest. "You busy? I need you at Luxe Gems, now." On the other end, Ethan Harper's deep voice came through, calm but edged with curiosity. "What's going on?" "They wouldn't sell me the necklace," she said. "Kicked me out, actually. Thought you might want to handle this one." There was a pause, then a low chuckle. "7 minutes," he said. "I'm on my way." Lydia slipped the phone back into her pocket and leaned against the building, her eyes on the street. A sleek black Rolls-Royce was about to pull up, and when it did, Vanessa Klein was going to wish she'd never opened her mouth. Lydia stood outside Luxe Gems, the glass doors swinging shut behind her with a soft thud that felt final. The street hummed with the usual city noise, cars rolling by, a distant horn, the chatter of pedestrians, but it all faded into a dull buzz in her ears. Her hands were stuffed deep in her jacket pockets, the envelope of cash crinkling against her fingers. She could still hear Vanessa's last jab echoing in her head. "Plastic beads, sweetheart." And the sting of it lingered, sharp and hot, but she wasn't mad. Not yet. She'd learned a long time ago that anger was a waste of energy when you had a better card to play. She glanced at her watch. 7 minutes, Ethan had said. She could wait. She leaned against the cool brick wall, her tote bag resting at her feet, and watched the traffic crawl past. A few people shot her curious looks as they headed into the store, probably wondering why someone like her was loitering outside a place like Luxe Gems. She didn't care. In a few minutes, they'd all know exactly why she was here. Inside, Vanessa was back in her element. She smoothed her suit jacket, flashing a smug little smile at Sophie as she strutted back to the counter. "Well, that's handled," she said, loud enough for the lingering customers to hear. "Can't let just anyone waste our time, right?" Sophie nodded eagerly, her grin mirroring Vanessa's. The woman in the fur coat gave an approving hum, and the Rolex guy tipped his head like he was saluting a job well done. The store settled back into its polished rhythm. Soft clinks of jewelry being adjusted, murmured conversations about carats and cuts. Vanessa had won, or so she thought. Exactly 7 minutes after Lydia stepped outside, a shadow fell across the pavement. A black Rolls-Royce purred to a stop at the curb, its glossy finish catching the afternoon sun like a mirror. The driver's door opened first, and a tall man in a dark suit stepped out, moving with the quiet efficiency of someone who didn't need to rush. Then the back door swung open and Ethan Harper emerged. At 45, Ethan was the kind of man who didn't just walk into a room. He claimed it. His charcoal suit fit him like it was stitched onto his frame, the kind of tailoring that cost more than most people's rent. His hair, a mix of dark brown and silver, was swept back just enough to look effortless, and his sharp blue eyes scanned the street before landing on Lydia. He didn't smile, not yet, but there was a flicker of something in his expression, amusement maybe, or anticipation. Behind him, 2 men in crisp business attire climbed out, carrying briefcases and the unmistakable air of people who got things done. Lydia straightened up as he approached. "Took you long enough," she said, her tone dry but warm. Traffic, Ethan replied, his voice low and smooth, the kind that could calm a boardroom or cut through it. He glanced at the store's gleaming facade, then back at her. They really kicked you out? Pretty much, she said, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Told me I didn't belong, suggested I try a discount jeweler. His jaw tightened, just for a second, before a slow, dangerous smile curved his lips. Big mistake, he said. Let's fix that. He turned toward the doors and Lydia fell into step beside him, her sneakers a quiet counterpoint to the sharp click of his polished shoes. The two assistants trailed behind, silent but alert. As they pushed through the entrance, the air inside Luxe Gems shifted again. This time, it wasn't subtle. Heads turned fast. Sophie froze mid-sentence, her hand hovering over a velvet tray. The woman in pearls gasped audibly, clutching her purse like it might shield her from whatever was coming. Vanessa, who'd been laughing with a customer near the back, stopped cold when she saw Ethan. Her face went pale, then flushed red, like her brain couldn't decide whether to panic or play it cool. She smoothed her hair, a nervous tick, and started toward them, her heels clicking faster than usual. "Mr. Harper," she said, her voice pitching up an octave as she reached them. "What a surprise! We weren't expecting you today." She flashed a smile, all teeth and no warmth, and extended a hand that trembled just enough to notice. Ethan didn't take it. He stood there, hands in his pockets, looking down at her with an expression that was polite but unreadable. "I wasn't planning on stopping by," he said, "but my wife mentioned she had some trouble here. Thought I'd see what's going on." Vanessa's smile faltered. "Your wife?" She glanced at Lydia, standing beside him in her denim jacket and sneakers, and the pieces didn't click. Not yet. "I'm sorry. I don't think we've met Mrs. Harper today. Maybe there's been a mix-up?" "No mix-up," Ethan said, his tone still calm but edged with something harder now. "She was here about 10 minutes ago. Wanted to buy a necklace. Emerald, I think. $25,000. Sound familiar?" Vanessa's eyes darted to Lydia again, and you could almost hear the gears grinding in her head. "Oh," she said, forcing a laugh that sounded more like a choke. "That woman? I didn't realize she was... Well, we had a little misunderstanding. She didn't seem like, our usual clientele." Ethan tilted his head, just slightly. Didn't seem like it," he repeated, letting the words hang there. "Interesting, because I'm pretty sure she had the cash, and I'm damn sure she's a client now, seeing as I own this place." The room went dead silent. Sophie dropped a ring she'd been holding, the clatter echoing like a gunshot. The Rolex guy's smirk vanished, replaced by wide-eyed shock. Vanessa's mouth opened, then closed, her red lipstick suddenly looking too bright against her ashen skin. "You own it?" she managed, her voice barely above a whisper. "Signed the papers last week," Ethan said, casual as if he were talking about the weather. "Luxe Gems is part of Harper Ventures now, which makes this little incident my problem. So tell me, Vanessa." He leaned in just enough to make her flinch. "What exactly did you say to my wife?" Vanessa swallowed hard, her hands twisting together. I just explained our policies, Mr. Harper. We have standards, you see, security measures. She didn't have an appointment and..." "Standards," Ethan cut in, his voice low and cold. "Right. And those standards include kicking out a paying customer because she doesn't dress like a runway model?" Lydia stepped forward then, her voice quiet but firm. "It's fine, Ethan. She didn't know. She thought I was some nobody with a fake story." Vanessa seized on that, nodding frantically. "Exactly. I had no idea who she was, I swear. If she'd said she was your wife..." "She shouldn't have to," Ethan snapped, his patience thinning. "She's a customer." That's enough, or it should been. The air in Luxe Gems was thick now, heavy with the weight of what was coming. Vanessa's triumph was crumbling fast, and she didn't even know the half of it yet. Because Ethan wasn't done, and neither was Lydia. The silence in Luxe Gems stretched tight, like a wire ready to snap. Vanessa stood there, her red heels rooted to the marble, her eyes darting between Ethan and Lydia as if she could talk her way out of the hole she'd dug. Ethan's two assistants lingered near the door, their briefcases still in hand, watching the scene unfold with the calm of men who'd seen worse. The customers hadn't moved. Some gripped their bags, others leaned closer, caught up in the drama like it was a live show. And Lydia? She just stood there, hands back in her pockets, looking at Vanessa with an expression that wasn't angry or smug. It was something else. Steady, almost pitying. "Mr. Harper," Vanessa started again, her voice wobbling as she clasped her hands together. "I'm so sorry for the confusion. If I'd known she was your wife, I'd have rolled out the red carpet. You have to understand, we get people in here all the time trying to pull stunts. Fake cards, sob stories. I was just protecting the store." Ethan didn't blink. "Protecting the store," he said, his tone flat. "By humiliating a woman who walked in with 25 grand in cash? That's your idea of protection?" Vanessa's mouth opened, but nothing came out. She looked at Sophie for backup, but the salesgirl was staring at the floor, suddenly very interested in her own shoes. The Rolex guy shifted uncomfortably, like he was rethinking every smirk he'd thrown Lydia's way. Ethan took a step closer, his shadow falling over Vanessa. "You didn't ask for ID, you didn't check her story. You looked at her jacket and decided she wasn't worth your time. That's not protection, that's prejudice." "I didn't mean it like that," Vanessa stammered, her composure cracking. "It was a mistake, okay? I'll apologize. Right now. Mrs. Harper, I'm so sorry. Lydia raised a hand, cutting her off. "Don't," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "I don't want your apology. It's not about me being his wife. It's about you thinking I didn't belong here because of how I look. You don't get to say sorry and make that go away." Vanessa blinked, thrown off by the rejection. "But I didn't know who you were," she said, almost pleading now. "If you just said something." Ethan's laugh cut through the air, low and sharp. "Said something?" he repeated. "She shouldn't have to drop my name to buy a necklace. But you're right about one thing, Vanessa. You don't know who she is. Let me fix that." He turned to Lydia, his blue eyes softening for the first time since he'd walked in. "You want to tell her, or should I?" Lydia shrugged, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "Go ahead. You're enjoying this too much already." Ethan nodded, then looked back at Vanessa, his smile turning into something colder, more deliberate. "You see that necklace she wanted? The emerald one you wouldn't sell her? It's not just some random piece. It's a Voss design. You know the name, don't you?" Vanessa frowned, her brows knitting together. "Voss? You mean Lydia Voss, the jewelry designer?" Her voice faltered as the dots started connecting, but she wasn't there yet. "Exactly," Ethan said, leaning back slightly, letting the weight of it sink in. "Lydia Voss, the woman who built a name crafting pieces that sold for millions, the woman whose designs you've got locked up in your VIP vault right now, the woman you just told to go buy plastic beads." The room gasped, literally gasped. Sophie's head snapped up, her eyes wide. The woman in pearls clutched her necklace, like she was checking if it was one of those Voss pieces. Vanessa's face went slack, her red lipstick standing out like a wound against her pale skin. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. That's impossible. Lydia Voss disappeared years ago. She didn't disappear," Lydia said, stepping forward now, her voice calm but carrying a quiet strength. She stepped away. 10 years ago, I walked out of that world. Runways, galas, all of it. I'd had enough. I wanted a life with my family, not a spotlight. But before that, I was designing jewelry you couldn't dream of affording, Vanessa. And today, I walked in here to buy something I could have made myself, just for my daughter. Vanessa's knees buckled slightly, but she caught herself on the counter. You're her? She managed, her voice barely audible. The Lydia Voss? Was, Lydia corrected. Now I'm just Lydia Harper. But yeah, that's me. Ethan crossed his arms, watching Vanessa unravel. Here's the kicker, he said. I didn't just buy Lux Gems because it's a good investment. I bought it for her. She's been itching to get back into the game. Not for the glitz, but for the craft. And you, Vanessa, just kicked out the one person who could have turned this place into something legendary. The room was a graveyard of silence now. Sophie looked like she might cry. The Rolex guy muttered something under his breath and edged toward the door. Vanessa's hands trembled as she gripped the counter, her perfect poise shattered. I didn't know, she said again, weaker this time. I swear. I Doesn't matter, Ethan cut in, his voice like steel. You judged her by her sneakers instead of her story, and that's why you're done here. Pack your things. You're out. Vanessa's head snapped up, panic flooding her eyes. Out! Mr. Harper, please! I've been here 5 years, my record's spotless. Your record, Ethan said, includes insulting a customer who's worth more to this company than you'll ever be. You're lucky I'm not suing you for defamation on top of it. James, he nodded to the security guard, who'd been hovering awkwardly nearby. Make sure she's gone in 10 minutes. James nodded, stepping forward with a look that said he wasn't thrilled about it, but wasn't arguing either. Vanessa's mouth worked soundlessly, tears welling up as the reality hit her. She turned to Lydia, desperate. Mrs. Harper, please, I didn't mean it. Tell him. Lydia shook her head, her expression unreadable. I'm not here to save you, she said. I'm here to fix what you broke. This place? She gestured around the store. It's going to be different now. Not just for me, but for everyone you've looked down on. That's my apology to them, not you. Ethan put a hand on her shoulder, a quiet signal that they were done here. Let's go, he said. We've got work to do. As they turned toward the door, Vanessa sank onto a stool, her red heels clicking one last time against the floor. The customers watched in stunned silence, the air thick with the fallout of a truth no one saw coming. Lydia Voss wasn't just back, she was about to rewrite the rules. The glass doors of Lux Gems swung shut behind Ethan and Lydia, leaving a stunned hush in their wake. Inside, Vanessa sat slumped on her stool, her red heels dangling like a pair of broken wings. James, the security guard, hovered nearby, shifting his weight from one foot to the other as he waited for her to move. Her hands shook as she reached for her purse, pulling out a compact mirror like she could fix the mess of her face. Smudged mascara, flushed cheeks, the works. But there was no fixing this. 5 years at Lux Gems gone in 5 minutes. She didn't look up as Sophie edged over, whispering something about grabbing her coat. The customers lingered, some pretending to browse, others openly staring, their whispers filling the air like static. Outside, Lydia and Ethan stood by the Rolls-Royce, the afternoon sun glinting off its hood. Ethan's assistants had already climbed back in, leaving the two of them alone for a moment. He loosened his tie just a fraction, glancing at her with a mix of pride and curiosity. You okay? He asked, his voice softer now, the edge gone. Lydia nodded, tugging her jacket closer against the breeze. Yeah, I've dealt with worse than her, just didn't expect it today. Should've, he said, a wry smile tugging at his lips. People see what they want to see, always have, but you handled it like a pro. She shrugged, kicking at a pebble on the sidewalk. Didn't feel like it. Felt like I was back in those old showrooms, proving myself all over again. Thought I'd left that behind. Ethan's smile faded, replaced by something steadier. You don't have to prove anything. Not to me, not to them. But if you want to take this place and make it yours, really yours, I'm in. All the way. She looked up at him, her dark eyes catching the light. I do, she said. Not for the spotlight, for the work. For Mia, too. She deserves to see what I can do. He squeezed her shoulder, a quiet promise. Then let's do it. 3 months later, the sign above the store didn't say Luxe Gems anymore. It read Harper Craft Gallery in sleek, understated letters with a smaller tagline etched below, Art for Every Hand. Lydia pulled her beat-up sedan into the parking lot, the same one she'd driven for years, and stepped out into the crisp morning air. The building looked different now, not in a flashy way, but in the details. The heavy glass doors had been swapped for warm wood ones with etched designs. Her designs. The windows displayed pieces that weren't just for millionaires. Handcrafted rings starting at $50, necklaces made by local artisans, and yes, a few high-end Voss originals for the collectors who'd come sniffing around. Inside, the vibe had shifted. The marble was still there, but the chandeliers were gone, replaced by soft pendant lights that made the space feel more like a workshop than a museum. A corner had been turned into a small studio, where a young woman with dyed purple hair was sketching at a bench, her tools spread out like a painter's palette. Customers milled around, not just the fur coat crowd, but a guy in a flannel shirt, a mom with a stroller, a teenager counting change for a bracelet. Lydia caught snippets of conversation as she walked through. This is so cool. Did you see the prices? I heard she's the real deal. She spotted Mia near the back, adjusting a display of earrings. At 16, her daughter had Ethan's sharp features and Lydia's quiet intensity, her green eyes bright as she rearranged the pieces. Mom, Mia called, waving her over. Check this out. I sold 3 of the turquoise studs already. People love them. Lydia smiled, a real one that reached her eyes. Good taste, she said, brushing a hand over the display. You're a natural at this. Mia grinned, then lowered her voice. Dad said you're doing the big unveiling today. The emerald necklace. Is it the one? Yeah, Lydia said, pulling a small velvet box from her tote. She flipped it open, revealing the necklace she'd tried to buy that day, the one Vanessa had sneered at. Only now, it was finished with a tiny silver charm shaped like a star, a nod to Mia's love of astronomy. Happy birthday, kid. Mia's eyes widened, and she threw her arms around Lydia, nearly knocking the box out of her hands. It's perfect, she said, pulling back to admire it. You're the best. Only because you are, Lydia replied, fastening the necklace around Mia's neck. It looked right there, like it belonged. Across town, Vanessa Klein sat behind the counter of a small jewelry shop in a strip mall, the kind with flickering fluorescent lights and a sign that read, Cash for Gold. She wore a plain gray sweater now, her red heels traded for flats, her blonde bob tucked behind her ears. A TV in the corner played a local news segment, the anchor's voice cutting through the hum of the empty store. Harper Craft Gallery opens today, a new vision from Lydia Harper, formerly Lydia Voss. Blending luxury and accessibility. Vanessa's hand froze on the counter, her eyes locked on the screen as footage showed Lydia and Mia laughing together at the unveiling. She turned it off, the silence settling around her like dust. Back at the gallery, the day rolled on. Lydia gave a short talk to a small crowd, staff, artisans, a few curious customers, about the new direction. This isn't about wealth, she said, her voice steady. It's about craft, about making something real for anyone who wants it. The purple-hayed artist clapped first, and the rest followed, a ripple of genuine applause. By late afternoon, the place was buzzing. A man in a trucker hat bought a ring for his wife, grinning like he'd won the lottery. A college kid haggled over a pendant, walking away with a deal and a smile. Lydia watched it all from the studio corner, sketching a new design. A bracelet this time, simple but bold. Ethan slipped in beside her, his suit jacket off, sleeves rolled up like he'd been moving boxes. "Looks good," he said, nodding at the crowd. "Better than good." "Yay," she agreed, setting her pencil down. "Feels right." He glanced at her sketch, then at her. "You're back, aren't you? The real Lydia Voss." She laughed softly, shaking her head. "Nah, just Lydia Harper." "That's enough." Outside, a woman in a worn coat hesitated at the door, then stepped in, clutching a crumpled 20. A staffer greeted her, not with a raised eyebrow but a smile, and showed her a tray of rings. She left with one, her shoulders a little straighter. Lydia caught the exchange and felt something settle in her chest. This was why she'd come back. Not for revenge, but for this. The sun was dipping low by the time Lydia and Ethan stepped out of Harpercraft Gallery, the sky streaked with orange and pink over the city skyline. Inside, the last customers were trickling out, some clutching little velvet bags, others still chatting with the staff about custom orders. Mia stayed behind, helping the purple-hailed artist, whose name turned out to be Jess, clean up the studio corner. The girl had taken to the place like she'd been born there, and Lydia couldn't help but smile at the thought. Her daughter was finding her own spark, and that was worth more than any necklace. Ethan leaned against the sedan, his arms crossed, watching the street with that quiet intensity he always carried. "Day one," he said, glancing at her. "How's it feel?" Lydia tucked her hands into her jacket pockets, the familiar crinkle of the empty envelope still there, a little reminder of how this all started. "Good," she said. "Different, but good. Like I'm building something again, not just chasing it." He nodded, his eyes softening. "You are. And it's better than anything Lux Gems ever was. Vanessa didn't see that coming." Lydia snorted, a rare laugh breaking through. "Vanessa didn't see a lot of things. Probably still doesn't." They both turned as a woman stepped out of the gallery, middle-aged, her coat patched at the elbows, a small paper bag in her hand. She caught Lydia's eye and hesitated, then offered a shy nod. "Got a ring for my sister," she said, her voice soft but steady. "First time I've walked into a place like this and didn't feel out of place. Thanks for that." Lydia smiled, genuine and warm. "Glad you came in. Hope she likes it." The woman nodded again, a little stronger this time, and headed off down the sidewalk, her steps lighter than when she'd arrived. Ethan watched her go, then turned to Lydia. "That's what you wanted, isn't it? Not just the craft, but the people." "Yeah," she said, her gaze lingering on the woman's retreating figure. "I spent years making things for people who didn't need them. This feels real, like it matters." He pushed off the car, stepping closer. "It does. And you made it happen. Most people would have walked away that day or burned the place down just to prove a point. You built something better." She shrugged, brushing off the praise like it was dust on her sleeve. It wasn't about proving anything. Not to her, anyway. It was about fixing what's broken, showing Mia there's more to this world than gatekeepers like Vanessa. Ethan's hand found hers, a quick squeeze that said more than words could. "She knows, and she's proud as hell. So am I." They stood there for a moment, the gallery's warm light spilling out onto the pavement, a contrast to the cold glitz of what it used to be. Inside, Jess laughed at something Mia said, the sound carrying through the open door. The place hummed with a new kind of energy, purposeful, alive, human. Lydia thought back to that day 3 months ago, the sting of Vanessa's words, the weight of every eye in that store judging her. She could have let it eat at her, could have let it turn her bitter. Instead, she'd taken it and made this. As they climbed into the sedan, Ethan behind the wheel for once, Lydia glanced back at the sign, Harpercraft Gallery. It wasn't about wealth or power or even the name she'd once carried. It was about respect. about giving people a place where a faded jacket got the same nod as a tailored suit. And that, she figured, was the best kind of comeback. The engine purred to life and they pulled away, leaving the gallery to settle into its first night. Whatever came next, Lydia knew one thing. She was done letting anyone else decide where she belonged.